And we are live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Oregon Fan Show, the podcast where we talk with Duck fans and college football experts about the things that make us want to shout. Our guest in the fourth hour is Eric from the Ohio podcast, a really great guy that I've had the pleasure to talk with 2 times on the Ohio State show. And he was incredibly classy and polite to me, which I appreciated. How you doing, Eric?
Doing great. Thank you, Dale. Appreciate that warm welcome. It's always good to speak with you, my friend. This is, I think, the third year we've gotten to talk heading into the season, and always enjoyed reading your work, and now I get to watch you too. So it's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, I've got a face for digital print media, but we're trying to make this work as well as we can. Now, you told me off the air you've been doing the Ohio podcast since 2019.
Yeah, yeah. We started in 2019, recording our conversations. Me and my former co-host Aaron Brown. He played football semi-professionally and coached for many years, and he and I just had a passion for Ohio State, and then we met through the podcast. My current co-host Chris, he was helping manage in a Ohio State store in Marion, Ohio, and we met him. We did a live show at their store, and that's how we came in contact with him, and he became a part of our show. And now we have 10 hosts, and we produce anywhere from 10 to 12 shows a week. And of course, when the season comes, well, we're just drinking from a water hose now. But yeah, we've been doing this since 2019. So we love it.
That's outstanding. What's your background in football? When did the air go out of the ball for you?
So great question, right? So my connection to the sport of football in Ohio State's an interesting one. My cousin was Ryan Miller, number 43 right there that you see there. He played in the mid 90s for Ohio State. And so when I was in junior high, I fell in love with Ohio State because my cousin was playing for the Buckeyes, and I, got to meet Eddie George and Orlando Pace and John Cooper and Matt Wilhelm and just all these great Buckeyes and in my childhood. And so that shaped me to always be a Buckeye fan. I actually never played football. My dad did. Of course, my cousin Ryan did. I was actually a baseball player. So I was a catcher and played baseball athletically into my collegiate years. And then, but I've always loved the sport of football. I just never played it. I even though I'm not necessarily a huge X's and O guy, I've always relied more on other people to give me the X's and O's. But I'm a storyteller. And so I went to school. I went to Ohio State for journalism. Believe it or not, that's how I started. I didn't finish with a journalism degree because I quickly realized the print media was dying really fast.
Really fast, like.
Yeah, so I got out of that and ended up with a business degree and working in engineering and things of that nature. But anyways, long story short, Dale, started the Ohio podcast as a way to scratch that journalism itch that I've always had. And so, yeah, it's been a passionate thing of mine, but I've always been a Buckeye fan ever since I was a kiddo. And it just felt like that was the thing to do.
The thing that I love about doing a podcast, and I've only just recently discovered it, I actually got my first taste of it during your show and the Inside the Pylon show, just talking with you guys. And the thing that I love about it is that it combines everything I like to do. It combines writing with talking ball, with engaging and making connections. So it's like being a string writer for a website magnified to the 20th degree.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. When I was in college, I was writing for the local newspaper and I was covering high school sports at the time. And when I was, a freshman, sophomore in college and things. So I've always had that, how can I take what I see visually and create article or story for you to where in your mind's eye, or as I used to like to call the theater of your mind, you can see the action that I'm explaining to you. Um, the podcast realm, like you said, it magnifies that, right? So now we can go in and we can talk about specific things within the game, specific players, storylines, and it presents it in a medium that I think is much more relatable to not only the younger generation, but given today's quick paced society that we live in, not everybody's going to click on an article and read it, right? It's just not the world that we live in today. But if they can listen to it while they're driving to work, or they can sit at home and they're like, you know what, they're surfing around Netflix and nothing's catching their attention, they can click on Oregon Ducks Live, and now they can be entertained and educated all at the same time. Oh, and look at our beautiful faces, Dale. Oh, it's a great thing.
Well, we can't oversell that part, but I appreciate what you're saying, particularly about storytelling. Storytelling is at the heart of it.
Yeah, and that's the way I watch the seasons. Like I really try to emphasize at the beginning of every season for the fan base that I'm a part of to enjoy the journey. Like every season is a story all to its own. There's ups, there's downs, there's things you don't anticipate. And it might end with the last chapter being a celebration at a national championship game. You just don't know. And a lot of people, they're so focused on the last chapter of the season that if it doesn't end the way they want, then it's a failed story. And I look at it and I go, no, that's not really the case, right? Because if that's all that matters, boy, oh boy, there's going to be 130 plus teams every single year who feel like their season was a disappointment. And you and I both know, Dale, that that's just not the case. So I always try to tell everybody, don't forget, enjoy the journey. You only get 12 of these guaranteed every single year. And gosh, in 2020, we didn't even get that. So make sure you enjoy it while it's here and while it lasts.
It's 23 days until the opening week. It takes so long to get here, and it's over so fast.
Exactly. Savor it.
Absolutely. I think at the same time, it's really important to remember that our job, to the extent that it is a job, is talking about 105 young men and their dreams. And it's
That's
important
right.
to do that with respect and sensitivity and a real drive to get it right and be fair.
Yeah, 100%. We live in a how many clicks can you get society online and things of that nature. In a lot of ways, social media has been a great invention and a terrible invention all at the same time. And you and I, we see it every single day. You've probably gotten some nasty emails. I've gotten nasty emails before. People tweet at us and say mean things, or and that's one thing to do it and say it to me, but these same people, Dale, they think they can also say these things to 18, 19, 20-year-old students. And I know, some of these kids are getting millions of dollars now through NIL, and I understand that. Believe you me, I get it. It's not the world I wish college football was living in, but here we are. But there's still people. You know what I mean? It's like for some reason some people think they can say whatever they want to these people, and I agree with you. Like, show some respect.
They're 18, 19, 20, and 21-year-old people, 22-year-olds in some cases, and their parents may be sitting right next to you in the stands.
That's right. Yeah. And they read they watch your shows. Like, I can't tell you how many times, we've had a show, and it's okay to be criticized. Like, I think it's okay to be critical. I mean, that's part of our job, right? Is to be
Right.
critical of a play calling, or critical of schemes, or critical of 4th and 2 and you went for it way too early in the game and you put yourself behind the 8 ball. Why did you do that? What was the thought process? It's okay to be critical, but you don't have to be disrespectful, especially to the young men who are trying their very best out there on any given Saturday.
And the level of commitment it takes to play at their level. It's not just something they show up to in August and put on the jersey and prance around for a while. They are working on this, 8-10 hours a day in January when we've forgotten all about it.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny you bring that up. I had a conversation with Ryan. This was after 2024 when we lost to the team up north, as we call them, the team that wears maize and blue.
Now, pardon me. When you say Ryan, do you mean Ryan Day?
Ryan Miller, my cousin.
I apologize.
Okay. Former Buckeye Ryan, and we were talking about Ryan Day and losing that all important game at the end of November. And he looked me dead in the eye. He said, "Eric, do you think you wanted to beat them more than those players?" Honestly.
That's a hell of a good question.
That's a great question. And this is coming from a former Buckeye, right? Who was on the 96 team, who probably would have won a national championship if they wouldn't have lost to that team, right? And I go, well, sometimes I wonder. And he goes, trust me, when you lay your head on your pillow at night, I can assure you that those 105 guys that you mentioned earlier, Dale, they wanted to win that football game, and those coaches wanted to win that football game even more than you did. I can promise you that because I lived it. So sometimes I think we have misconceptions, misunderstandings, and sometimes we have these ill will thoughts that creep into our mind about these young men when it comes to this game. Like I promise you, those Oregon Duck players want to beat the Washington Huskies more than the fans who will watch this podcast, and they might disagree with me, but trust me, I think that is 100% true, because they're the ones, like you said, who are getting up at 5 a.m. and running wind sprints in January in the cold in order to beat that team come November.
And stadium stairs, and hitting a weight room for 2 hours, and taking a full load of classes, and all the other things they have to do.
That's right.
Yeah, there's so much work away from, team activities that it's just mind-boggling what they do to be great.
100%. Yeah. These are some of the best athletes in the world, and some of them are going to go on and be drafted in the NFL and become multimillionaires, and this will be something that will benefit their future children and grandchildren. So yeah, who are we to just call them bums? You know what I mean? You're a bum.
Yeah, and the frustration in the moment is understandable. I mean,
Sure.
we live and breathe this stuff as fans. We absorb ourselves in it. And Ohio State fans, maybe more than any other fans in the country, after 9 national championships, that state is football crazy.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
You guys,
it's a second religion for a lot of us, and for some it might be their only. To be completely honest with you, right? Like, this state is football crazy. I know the Cleveland Browns haven't been good for a long time, and the Cincinnati Bengals, well, as long as Joe Burrow is healthy, they can be good. But this state has always and will always be built around what takes place in the Horseshoe in the fall in Columbus, Ohio. That entity, that enterprise, fuels so much of what happens economically in the city of Columbus. You can't put a major professional sports team in Columbus, because the major professional sports team is the Ohio State football team. We have the Columbus Blue Jackets, we have the Columbus Crew, we now have the UFL Columbus Aviators. None of them even come close to the fanfare, the financial benefit that the Ohio State Buckeyes football team does for the city of Columbus and for the Ohio State University. it is the professional sports team of Columbus, Ohio, in those regards. And so the passion of this fan base, Dale, is I am only one of 100 plus or more
Wow.
podcasts, YouTube channel, media outlets, whatever you want to call it. Like, we're all crazy here in Columbus, Ohio, and shoot, you even have people who live outside the state of Ohio who are big time Ohio State fans. So huge alumni base, massive passion within the state. There's a lot of other colleges and universities in the state of Ohio, and some really good ones. UC, Cincinnati in the Big 12. You've got a lot of MAC schools: Bowling Green, Toledo, Akron, Kent State, Ohio University, Miami of Ohio. There's a really good Division II and Division III football in the state of Ohio. If you've never heard of Mount Union in Division III, look them up. They're like the Alabama of Division III football. So there's, yeah, as far as the sport of football, that's what, Ohio's kind of like a little Texas, if you will. You know how Texas is Friday Night Lights crazy. Ohio's the same way in regards to that. And it's definitely a religion for a lot of people. I remember one young lady from who was the daughter of one of our co-hosts. She went to her first game. It happened to be just the spring game, and she told her dad, she goes, "I'm pretty sure, Dad, you are in a cult." That's what she said. We're pretty excited about our Buckeyes.
Yeah. Well, after 9 national championships and all the wins and all the really iconic moments that Ohio State football has produced, if it's a cult, it's a really interesting and effective and, admirable cult in many ways.
It's been successful, that's for sure.
I respect the Buckeyes, but it's kind of fun. There's sort of a brewing rivalry between
Yeah.
our schools.
Yeah. I think you and I have talked about this before, Dale. I call it the Nike Bowl. I want I want the Bucks and Ducks to be I think I do. I think it's the new great Big Ten rivalry. And shoot, I mean, if the Ohio State's not careful, Indiana can be that for you guys too. I would much rather it be us than them, but yeah, there's so many similarities, I think, between the two programs. I really do believe that. And the more I've learned about Oregon since you guys have joined the Big Ten, the more that those similarities become just they come to the surface for me. Washington views themselves very similarly to you guys, the same way that Michigan views themselves to us. They think they're a little bit elite. They're
Yeah.
kind of pompous and and arrogant and how they approach the rivalry and look at themselves. Maybe a hint of jealousy when it comes to the whole Nike thing. Although Michigan's got their Nike contract as well, but when you look at sales, Ohio State just doubles them when it comes to merchandise sales for Nike. You have Phil Knight and that, and you have Nike, in Ohio State. You got the O's, the block O of Ohio State, the O of Oregon. There's so many similarities with that. They're both pretty elite programs at this point. And although Oregon might not have the tradition historically that Ohio State has, you take that away from the equation. They are, in my opinion, coupled with Kurt Cignetti at Indiana, the two best programs in the Big Ten consistently since Oregon joined. And if you want to look at the last 20 years, I would say out of all the teams in the Big Ten, including USC, who joined along with you guys, Ohio State and Oregon have been the most consistent programs since 2000 in the conference.
They're raising the bar and keeping the Big Ten in the national conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were your feelings about Big Ten expansion when the USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington announcements were made?
Great question. So before I answer that, let me first say that I miss Pac-12. I know that might be a little
I do
interesting
too. Yeah.
it might be a little interesting for some of your watchers and followers to hear that coming from a Buckeye. But I felt like the Big Ten and the Pac-12 had a great some relationship. The Rose Bowl was always the granddaddy, and it was the best history as far as a bowl. And by the way, I miss bowl games too. I'm a traditionalist in nature by nature. So I missed what used to be a great time of year with bowl games, and I understood that we were eventually going to get to the playoff anyways. So kind of sad to see bowl games go. And if you want to, I can give you my how to fix bowl season later in the show. But um, yeah, so I missed the Pac-12. But when Texas and Oklahoma did what they did to the Big 12, I felt like it was important for the Big 10 to make a move. And for all the faults that Kevin Warren had, the former Big 10 commissioner, and he had plenty that I didn't like. The one thing he did do correctly was he answered the SEC with a power move of his own by going out there and getting UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington. It was almost like SEC, I see your move, I raise you with 4 more. And it did 2 things. Not only did it answer the Oklahoma Texas move, but it increased the footprint of the Big Ten, which made the Big Ten more valuable as a whole.
Coast to
And
coast.
that's right. And so it's the most, I forget which coach said this, but one of the coaches in the Big Ten said it's the it might have been Jed Fish. I know we shouldn't give him credit here, but I think it was him who said the Big Ten is the most NFL-like conference in college football. And he's 100% right in regards of this conference even has traveling like the NFL as an experience of being in the conference now. And so I look at that move of those 4 schools coming from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, and I say, as much as I would have wished it would have just remained, college football would have remained, it was important for the Big Ten to answer what the SEC did in order to still flex at that table when it came to bargaining against the SEC. And not only that, but then the last recent success of the last 3 years of the Big Ten on the football field and in other sports, all of a sudden it's pretty evident that the Big Ten will be making the decisions moving forward, not just the SEC.
We're the captain now.
Yeah, we're in the driver's seat here.
Nobody saw Kurt Signetti coming.
No,
I mean, that was an amazing achievement. Do they have staying power?
Yes, because of him. So Indiana. And I know your viewers will probably understand this, but Indiana was a basketball school. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, you could. The equivalent would be UCLA, right?
Yeah.
Except UCLA still had a pretty good football team from year to year sometimes, right?
Terry Donahue. Yeah.
Indiana did not. Okay, Indiana, their one good year of football, I mean, it was like in the 80s, and they went to the Rose Bowl, and I think they lost 2 or 3 games that season still anyways. That was their elite year.
I do it every time.
The fact that Kurt Signetti was able to do in 2 years at Indiana, mind you, what no other coach was able to do is a Disney story of Disney stories.
Yeah.
And given the level of support that the administration, the boosters, the
Mark
school,
Cuban,
the alumni, Mark Cuban, the level of support Kurt Signetti is getting, Indiana is no longer a basketball school, ladies and gentlemen. That is a football school. And they have one of the larger alumni bases in the country. So yeah, there's definitely staying power there. Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens after Kurt Signetti decides to hang it up. Like how how desirable of a job will that be? Will they go after somebody? Or will Kurt Signetti, which is what I think is going to happen, groom one of his assistants to take his spot eventually? And will that person be anywhere nearly as successful as him? That remains to be seen. But Kurt Signetti is, in a lot of ways, it feels like the last old school coach we have in college football. He's a disciple of Nick Saban, and he still has a lot of old school personality about him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been able to still marry the two in this new generation of college football and his personality. Marsh, the wide receiver from Michigan State who transferred to Indiana, puts on some gold shoes and goes out in the spring and he says, "Get those things off. We don't do that here at Indiana." That's an old school approach of a coach saying, "No, don't be flashy." Most coaches today would be like, "I can't really say that to him, I don't want to upset him." And he doesn't really give a darn. That's the thing about it. So it's a unbelievable story. And the dude is kind of like a super villain, and at the same time you kind of root for him a little bit because of it. So it's like it's a wild thing. I don't think Indiana's going anywhere.
You have to admire the chutzpah he
Yeah.
brought to it. And it's absolutely how he had to be, because he was trying to change a 50-year losing tradition. I mean, he came in at the first basketball game and said, "Purdue sucks, and Ohio State and Michigan suck too." And the crowd just roared. But he had to be this sort of outlandish, brush cut assassin like Michael Douglas in Falling Down to get everybody's attention, to change the way Indiana fans and Indiana players and supporters of the program were looking at themselves.
100%.
And he did it.
Yeah. Google him. He's done it everywhere he's gone.
Yeah.
So, the dude does not lack confidence. That is for sure. And he brought in his type of people, and he took advantage of all the rules that, he comes to Indiana 10, 15 years ago. 6 years ago. No way does he do what he was able to do. He took advantage of this era, and give the guy credit. He did.
NIL, the portal, and the 5th and 6th year transfers. Yep. So he had a team that was almost as old as the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. And it showed.
Yeah.
It showed.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. Signetti is 66, so you figure he doesn't have more than 5 or 6 years to coach. Mike Shanahan and Brian Haynes are both really good coordinators, but not every coordinator makes a great head coach.
True. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't think Indiana's going anywhere, and he's even been intelligent in getting the athletic department to be like, you know what? We need to make sure in my first year we have a winning record. So let's make sure we don't schedule anybody difficult in those non-conference games. And then it works so well for me. He's like, let's just keep doing it, and I don't care what they say,
You bring up a great point, Eric. Greg was my last guest. Eric, I don't like this trend that teams are doing now, and Penn State's doing it, Iowa's doing it, USC's doing it, where they're just playing nobody in the preseason. They're just racking up 3 cupcake wins to start the year. And I'm afraid if they expand the playoffs, we'll see even more of that, because coaches and athletic directors want to keep their job.
So I'm glad you brought that up. All right, here we go. I like to come up with ideas and philosophies and ways to fix things, right? So I have come up with a point system, a non-conference point system that the college football playoff committee should use. And you get 1 point for win. You get 1 point for playing a power 4. You get 2 points for playing a top 25 team. And
So
so
it's,
you
forgive me for interrupting.
you can accumulate certain
Okay.
points, and you don't even look at what your win loss in the non-conference. It's just how many non-conference points did you get. So if you schedule 3 top 25 teams, you might have lost them all, but you should get credit for playing 3 top 25 teams. And if you lose them all, okay, you're probably going to not do well in your conference anyway, so don't worry about it. But at some point, we have to give a reason for schools to want to schedule great games that us fans want to see.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to do that is to give them an incentive to do it. Win or lose, win or loss, you scheduled, you get X amount of points based off your schedule. And of course, you get a point for a win. So, there's an extra one. But at the end of the day, your conference schedule is what means the most. But when they're judging teams, and it comes down to, I don't want it to be, oh, this team was 11-1 and this team was 10-2. Mm-hmm. And the 10-2 team might be better than the 11-1 team, but the 11-1 team's got 11 wins, so we better put them in. Well, you and I both know you can kind of skew that based off your schedule. Let's take Penn State for an instance this year. Mm-hmm. Penn State plays nobody in a non-conference.
Nobody.
And their conference schedule, one of the easiest in the Big Ten, by far. So Penn State might go 10-2. That's my prediction for them this year. 10-2 with a really weak schedule. But Ohio State might go 9-3 with one of the most difficult schedules in college football this year. They travel to Austin, Texas. They travel to Bloomington, Indiana. They travel to Iowa City. They travel to Los Angeles to play USC. They play Oregon at home. They play who else do we play at home that's a big time game? There's one other one too. Oh, Michigan. How could I forget that? So 6 of their 12 games are against teams that are going to be in the top 25. Mm-hmm. And so a 9-3 Ohio State or a 10-2 Penn State, you tell me who's the better team there.
And then you, into that argument, you throw the teams that go 9-3 in the SEC, and that's tough. I like your idea of giving the committee a clear-cut set of guidelines.
Absolutely.
That not just right now, the committee just values wins.
And not all wins are created equal. And that's what I'm getting at is, you should be rewarded for challenging yourself, right? Mm-hmm. You go back and you look at some of the schedules Ohio State had in the 1990s. Mm-hmm. They played 8 conference games. Okay. There was only at the time 11 schools in the Big Ten. There was the original 10, or I call them the old 10, and then Penn State. Nebraska was still in the Big 12 at the time. Mm. Or Rutgers and Maryland were in the Big East. Remember that? Yeah. So, but they would play 8 Big Ten schools. But then you looked at their 4 preseason games. They played Notre Dame, Washington, Boston College, and Pitt one year. That was their non-conference schedule. And I was like, holy crap. We would crap our pants if that's what they had this year in a non-conference schedule. And it's like, okay. Those were great years, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we saw some great football in week 1 and week 2. This year, there's not that much.
Week 2 will be all right if you're a Buckeye fan, Texas fan. Yeah, Oklahoma, Michigan. Yeah.
That's true. But what about the game before that or after that? They're
cupcakes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I meant on that day's schedule, but right. Yeah, it's the other way they could attack the problem would be to have centralized scheduling of some kind, yep, where either the league or a more robust NCAA would step in and say, okay, everybody's got to play 9 conference games, and everybody's got to play 1 Power 4 opponent one road game in the out of conference schedule, and no more than one cupcake.
Yeah.
Naked defined cupcake. But I would think at some point, the TV networks that are paying all this money for football rights would step and say, hey, your next contract's going to be nothing like you've been getting unless we get some inventory that we can really sell.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's the next wave of conference realignment is going to be based off of what you just brought up, the word content. Okay. Now I know that there are policies in place. So like a lot of people, you in if you watch YouTube, you've seen them in your feed. The next, the biggest rumor about the next, conference realignment with this and that, and these guys don't know. Okay, I'm telling you, no one knows exactly how it's going to go because a lot of people are putting teams in the Big Ten that the Big Ten are never going to accept. At the end of the day, the Big Ten, they want you to be an AAU school. And the reason why is because the Big Ten gets so much government funding for medical research that a lot of people on this side of the camera, when we're just rooting for college football, we never take into account the academic side of it with a conference, right? And those school presidents, at the end of the day, they're the ones you got to convince here for this. And they're going to look at say Joe Schmo school might have a great football team, but they have terrible research. They're not bringing anything to the table when it comes to their AAU status with government funding and medical research and development. And so they're going to look at that and go, yeah, no, we're not doing that. I even will go as far as to say Nebraska better get their AAU status back, or I wouldn't be surprised if the Big Ten says adios to them. So I know people might be like, what are you talking about, Boggs? But I'm dead serious when I tell you most of the presidents in the Big Ten could care less about how the television market for your football team. They could care less about it. And they are not going to sit back and just be like, oh yeah, bring that school and this school in, and unless football is able to separate itself from the rest of the athletic department and academic department in schools, and it becomes its own entity, which is a possibility. I'm not saying it's not, given the the new era in which we're living in, but I just don't see the next wave being something to where the Big Ten there are going to be very few specific schools that they want to bring in. And number one, it's Notre Dame. Let's be honest.
That'll be a battle because everybody wants the Irish, and the Irish derive a lot of benefit from being independent.
Absolutely. Yeah, they will have to force their hand. Their hand will have to be forced. It'll happen based off of regulations with the college football playoff at the end of the day. But we'll see. I don't know. I know I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but I think people sometimes get tricked into watching these videos of guys who are just spitballing when it comes to the conference realignment thing, and they don't even know all the nuance that's involved with it when it comes to a conference like the Big Ten.
Well, rabbit holes are what this show is all about. We do 4 hours of college football content a day, and I do 8 if my wife would let me get away with it. All right, let's switch gears. You're looking live at the best player in college football, and the primary reason, while the Buckeyes are number one in many polls and among the favorites to win the national championship. Eric, as I look at this guy, as good as he's been in his first 2 years, I mean, he is yoked. He looks like he's ready to take it to an entirely different level. And for him, I don't know what that will be. What will it be?
Well, he's going to be the first player ever in the history of Ohio State to own all 3 major receiving records: receptions, yards, touchdowns. That's never happened before in Ohio State history. In fact, the leaders of all 3 of those records are held by 3 different receivers. and he's going to shatter all three of them if he stays healthy this year. In fact, he's going to own all three more than likely by game 6 or 7. And to do it in only 2.5 seasons is incredible. He is like, if you were to take all the attributes of a wide receiver and you were to say, this wide receiver's speed and this wide receiver's catch radius and this wide receiver's route running and this wide receiver's hand strength, and you would to create the perfect receiver. You take Ted Ginn's speed and you take Chris Carter's catch radius and all of those things, and you were to say that would be the perfect receiver. He's all of those things. So much so that the NFL Hall of Famer Chris Carter already said he's a Hall of Famer in the NFL. If he stays healthy, there's no way he's not a Hall of Famer. He is just different. I've never seen a receiver like him before in my lifetime of covering Ohio State. And we've had, in the last 15 years, we've had a slew of great ones. And none of them come close to how good Jeremiah Smith is.
It's startling, isn't it? It's amazing to be a fan of any team and watch him play football.
It is. It's startling is a good descriptive word for it's breathtaking at times. It's absolutely breathtaking. I feel like every week the worst person in the stadium, the worst player is the cornerback lined up across for him. And I can't wait for that week 2 matchup in Austin, Texas, because they think that they held them down last year and they think they're going to do it again this year. I just think to myself, good luck.
Yeah, he's pointing to that game a little bit.
Yeah, he is.
The last time Texas triple covered him at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they blanketed him pretty good, and that was the first game ever Julian Sain as a starting quarterback too. Let's not forget about that. And because of that, the game plan was to be very, very conservative and make sure that they didn't put Julian in bad situations or cause him to turn the football over on the wrong side of the 50. And there was a lot of thought that went into that game. Some of that led to Jeremiah Smith's less than stellar day. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. I think Arthur Smith, the new offensive coordinator at Ohio State, is going to scheme Jeremiah open quite a bit in that game. And if their game plan is to just try to find a way to stop Jeremiah Smith, I think they're going to be in for a rude awakening of what's going to happen that game, because there's a lot of other guys on that field who can burn you if that's all you're worried about.
Boz, what is he now? He's about 6'3", 225.
Yeah, he could be 230 by the time he plays that game. There's not an ounce of fat on the kid too. That's what's crazy, man. He could play linebacker if he wanted to. That's how impressive he is. It just doesn't look normal, if you know what I mean. So next, I've stood next to him before. The only other player that I can say gave me the same Adonis feeling, if you will, like, oh my gosh, this guy was created on Mount Olympus, was Chase Young.
Yeah.
Chase Young gave you that vibe of like, okay, all of these Division I football players are big and athletic and impressive, and then that one's different. That's the closest thing I can explain it as.
You've got great genes, and you combine that with just the fierce desire to be the Heisman Trophy winner, to prove everybody wrong, to defeat triple coverage or anything else that comes at him.
Yeah, he's built differently between the ears too.
Yeah.
And Marvin Harrison Jr. was a workout freak. Like, he would spend hours on the jug machine after practice because he was just addicted to his craft. Jeremiah Smith is the same way, but I think his level of give a darn is on a different level too.
Mm.
Like he's a competitor. Like you're a lot of all these guys are competitors, but then there's like another level to that where it's almost unhealthy addiction, right?
Mhm.
Like he doesn't care about anything else other than being the best, man. It is pretty wild, and which is kind of refreshing in the era that we live in. That the best player in college football happens to also be like, I'll just let everybody else take care of my NIL. I don't care. Like, hey, do your job. You're the agent. You do your job. All I care about is being the best.
Wow.
He's going to step in to the NFL next year. Again, all of this, you know, if he stays healthy, he will step in the NFL next year. And my prediction will be he's already one of the 5 best wide receivers in the league day one. And he probably is right now, which is crazy.
It is crazy. Boss, does it hurt him at all that the rest of the wide receiver room is a little less unsettled than normal?
No, and I'll tell you why. That room I think is going to surprise a lot of people this year.
Okay.
Give you just some personal thoughts, right? Chris Henry Jr. is different as well.
6'5".
He is. If you squint your eyes and you envision him wearing green, he reminds me of Randy Moss.
Hmm.
A little bit of a Marshall, going back to his days at Marshall.
Okay.
He's a lot of people compare him to Marvin Harrison Jr. now just because that's the Ohio State comparison and size,
Yeah.
but I think he's a little bit more Randy Moss than he is Marvin Harrison Jr. Devin McEwen, the transfer from UTSA from G6 school, right? No one knows who he is. Go look up his stats at what he did for the Roadrunners. I got to watch practice last week. They had an open practice, and I went and watched it. He is so smooth. He gets in and out of his cuts so quickly. He was putting on a show those first 2 days of the open practice. Devin McEwen is going to be a problem. Now, I'm not comparing him to former wide receiver greats at Ohio State, but by the end of the year, I'm telling you, everybody's going to know who Devin McEwen is, okay? Brandon Ennis is going into his 4th year, his 2nd year as the starting slot receiver. He didn't get a ton of attention last year. A lot of people are really down on him. You're not going to find a harder worker than Brandon Ennis. They have a thing here in Columbus every year. It's called the Cruise for Cancer, where they go to Florida and they get on a big cruise ship full of nothing but Buckeye fans, where they raise money for cancer research. And Ryan Day and some of the players who are seniors get to go on this trip and mingle in and among Buckeye Nation and fans. Brandon Ennis didn't go. And when the first time the media got the chance to talk to him, they said, Brandon, why didn't you go on the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer? You're a senior. You were a team captain. Why didn't you go? And he said, because I felt that it was more important for me as a leader to be here to work out with the team that week. That's someone who's got his priorities straight. Like you ask you or me, like, hey, are you willing to stick around and do 10 more podcasts this week, or are you going to go on the cruise? I'm going on the cruise. Have fun, guys. I'm going to go to Barbados and everywhere else in the Caribbean. Okay. That's the kind of dedication the man is. And in order for him to get the award Iron Buckeye, which they only hand out to so many guys who never miss practice, show up to every lifting event and never miss anything during the summer, he wouldn't have got that award if he would have went on the cruise. And he was like, I want my Iron Buckeye, and I'm not leaving my teammates behind who aren't seniors.
Who started?
Go ahead.
Forgive me, Boz. Who started that tradition?
The Iron Buckeye?
Yeah.
Urban Meyer.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like something Urban would start.
Urban. Everything was a competition to Urban, right? They also have the black stripe tradition, which is kind of new. I don't know if you've heard of that before. But
No.
every new player who comes to Ohio State, whether it's a transfer or a freshman, they don't earn the red stripe down the middle of their helmet. They put a black stripe on their helmet. And you don't get to remove your black stripe and become a part of the brotherhood until you earn the right to remove your black stripe.
Mm.
So that's another tradition that started under Urban Meyer that Ryan Day has kept. That's pretty neat. So we have a big thing where in Buckeye Nation, when a player loses his black stripe, it's kind of a signaling of this guy is doing things that's causing the coaching staff to say we can count on him, right? So when Devin McEwen lost his black stripe, I think the third day or fourth day of camp, we were like, oh, yep, what we saw was right. He is going to get to play quite a bit.
Wild. It After a near record-setting accuracy last season, it really looks like Julian Sand might be ready to take even another leap as a second-year quarterback.
Yeah, so um, he's put on about 10 pounds of muscle, so he's a little bit bigger. He was kind of a scrawny. I won't use the word scrawny. That's not fair. He just wasn't built for the Big Ten. I put it
Mm,
to you that way, right?
okay.
Um, so he really dedicated working on his body, getting bigger, so he could take a little bit more of a pounding if he needs to run the football a little bit more. That was kind of the idea behind it. So he's a little bit more chiseled. He's got a little bit more of a neck on him now. Like I said, he's added about 10 pounds of muscle. So yeah, that's going to help out in that regard. The other thing that I think is going to be very interesting to watch, especially early on, is Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator, again, new OC at Ohio State, has talked about Julian being so intelligent between the ears
Mm,
that he has started to institute giving Julian two different calls. Not just here's the play call. I'm giving you two. And when Julian looks over the line of scrimmage, he's allowed to choose which one he wants. Now, I know that a lot of teams and players will have a play call and then they can, they can audible out of it to hot reads or things or whatever they need. They can audible to certain plays. I understand. That's not what this is. This is like, hey, here's this play and then here's this play. It's hard enough. I don't know, Dale, if you've ever heard some of these long play calls that these quarterbacks have to, like, it's hard enough to get one down, but to get two of them and then be like, okay, yeah, which one do I want? That's some next level stuff. Arthur Smith said, I was really shocked he could do that, but he can. So that's advantage us, right? For the quarterback. So yeah, he was really accurate last year. Sure. I don't anticipate that going down much. Maybe he takes more shots, risks, and than he did, and maybe that drops the percentage a little bit. But I am more excited on just him commanding the huddle more, and being able to control the game from the line of scrimmage a little bit more now that he's experienced and has an OC who's able to layer his play calling for him.
increases command of the game and the command of the picture.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch the difference between game one, start number one last year in the shoe, and what'll be game number 16, game two of the season. Actually, yeah, 16 in Austin, Texas against that defense, and just how much more comfortable he looks. Now, the good news is, Dale, 4 returning starters on the offensive line.
And they
That could
all, yeah.
that could be a great benefit to him in this offense.
Oh, yeah. And they always have a good offensive line. I mean, who's your offensive line coach?
Gosh, you asked me too fast. He came from Virginia Tech and just last year. But I can't think his name's on the tip of my tongue. Anyways, yeah, they've done a great job. Tyler Bowen. I had to look it up real fast. Gosh darn
Okay.
it, Tyler
All right.
Bowen. He was the OC at Virginia Tech, and he came over last year. Um, he's a good recruiter. I'll give him that. I I felt like the offensive line as a whole actually took a step back from the
Hmm.
previous year. In 2024, we won the national championship and went on a great run. And a lot of those guys came back last year and they didn't look as good.
Hmm.
We had a big problem on the right side of the line. And then we dealt with an injury on the left side of the line as we went into the postseason. That kind of derailed things. And you go back, you watch the Indiana game and you watch the Miami game, and you could pinpoint the fact that we lost the line of scrimmage to both the Hoosiers and the Hurricanes, and that's why we lost those football games. And there's been a great emphasis by these seniors on that offensive line to dominate this year, and I feel very confident that if that becomes the strength of our football team is the offensive line, we're going to control the line of scrimmage and win a lot of football games the old-fashioned way at Ohio State and just run the football down their throat. And listen, if you're going to be so worried about Jeremiah Smith that you're going to let us get 5, 6, 7 yards of pop, we'll take it all day.
Pretty good running back in Bo Jackson too. Let me
Yeah,
ask you. Let me ask you about the defense before we go. Now, this defense sent 3 players in the first 11 picks of the NFL draft, which is phenomenal.
crazy.
Obviously, the Buckeyes always recruit extremely well, but will this defense be as solid as it's been the last couple of years?
Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? And that's really the worry by Buckeye fans. Yeah, you lost 8 starters on that defense from last year, the number one defense. Now, we all were going into 2025 saying the same thing. We had a national championship level defense. We just lost our defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, who went to Penn State, and I think we had lost 7 starters off that defense, and we were like, man, we're probably I don't know about this Matt Patricia fella. He looked terrible at Detroit. Yeah, he was a Super Bowl winning coordinator for New England, but this is college now. And boy, were we wrong. That was one of, if not the best defense I have seen at Ohio State in my lifetime. We've had some doggone good ones in the years I've been watching the Silver Bullets, as we call them. And that was the best one. That was a phenomenal defense. Can Matt Patricia put together something that's close to that? Well, until he proves me wrong, I'm going to say Matt Patricia is going to put this defense in good situations. They are going to be younger. They are very talented. They're nowhere maybe near as talented as what we just saw, but that's not to say by the end of the year Matt Patricia can't have them clicking again. So my anticipation is no, they will not be as good as they were last year. But if the offense takes a big step forward, do they really have to be? Just be good enough, right?
Every team has its own flavor and character. I mean, from one season to the next, the team you root for can have a different sort of personality. And it sounds like the Buckeyes are undergoing a transition right now.
Yes, they are. Yeah, yeah. It's funny because as fans, we used to say, "Man, we had a championship level defense, but the offense wasn't there," or "We had a championship level offense, but the defense wasn't there." And in 2024, it just kind of all came together. We had both sides of the ball. Last year, we had a championship level defense, but we only managed 10 points against Indiana, and we only managed, I forget how many it was against Miami, like 13, 17, something like that. I don't know. So, yeah, it's kind of like, shucks, if we would have had a little bit better offense, maybe we would have won the back-to-back national championships. But we'll see. I think the offense is definitely going to be elite this year. The question will be the defense, but I have a lot of faith that Matt Patricia can scheme those boys up and coach them up and get them ready.
It's going to be fun, and it all starts in 23 days. Boss, it has been incredible to talk with you again. I learn something every time we do. I appreciate you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to having you on our show next week where we get to talk about the Ducks, buddy. Our
That'll
I'm
be fun.
our fans are going to be fired up for that one.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I very much appreciate the chance to interact with you.
Thank you so much, Dale. Appreciate you, my friend.
Take care.